YouTube. Hello to everyone who is tuning in live on the broadcast right now. Hello to everyone who is tuning in on the replay. My name is Patrick. I work at the aquarium here in social media, and this is becoming our weekly Friday relax ocean time here next to the wild Monterey Bay, and it got a little bit stormy. If you're watching our social media feeds a little bit earlier, you may have seen a beautiful sunny bay with Risso's dolphins going by. It was warm, flat, calm, beautiful sun, and right now, as you can see, the clouds are coming in, the waves are starting to come up, a little bit more spooky out there with that storm coming in. And here to talk a little bit more about that, I'm going to turn it over to some of my
Delightful interpreter Erin. I'm just going to move our mic over here so you can hear both of us right now.
Yeah, here. Actually, Emily, I think I messed up here, so you're going to need to do that intro one more time because I think you were talking without any microphone. Hold on. So let's just do and here, we'll just put the microphone back in here as if nothing happened. Here we go.
Professional quality here. All right. Well, in case you didn't catch that first introduction there. Hi, everyone. My name is Emily. I am part of the social media team here at the Monterey Bay Aquarium along with Patrick. And this afternoon, we are joined by the ever delightful interpreter, Erin. Good afternoon, Erin.
Hi, Emily. Hi, everyone.
How's it going?
Oh, it is an absolutely amazing day here. I know we are getting that storm, but it's still pretty beautiful. I did see a question down here asking how high the waves are, and so far it's actually pretty calm, but we can already see the waves changing out there.
Yeah, you can see kind of on camera right now just how flat it is out in the bay right now, and just over the next few hours as the wind picks up and as this new low pressure system moves in here along the coast, we're definitely going to see those waves start to pick up. So it is winter season now officially here in Monterey as of last week's big storm, and this is definitely the season where usually about every week we see something roll through the bay and we see those big waves, the high winds, and it's all part of the natural cycle here. That's actually a really important part of the nutrient cycle here in Monterey, right, Erin?
Oh, it absolutely is. And we see lots of animals that are here to make use of some of the food that is already in the bay. But this is kind of the time of renewal for the bay. In fact, out in the kelp forest, we see the winter storm starting to rip up some of that old kelp that grew all through the spring and summer to make room for some of that new kelp to come in next spring when we get some really nutrient-rich water.
Definitely. I'm just looking at our chat here right now. So we've got comments coming in from Facebook and Periscope, YouTube, and Twitch all at once. Hey, Sarah, how's it going? We've got folks tuning in from San Jose, from Illinois, from the Philippines. Let's see here. Where else we got folks coming in from right now? From Fort Worth, Texas, all saying hello. New Brunswick, Canada, hello. Folks all over the place. Oregon tuning in, Whittier, California, all over to hang out with us here this afternoon. So again, for those of you who are just joining us, my name is Emily. I am part of the social media team here at the Monterey Bay Aquarium. We've got Patrick running the show behind the scenes right now, trying to get things going. There he is. And then we are joined this afternoon. I introduced you kind of by your title, interpreter, Erin, but do you mind kind of explaining what that means here at the aquarium when we say interpreter?
Absolutely. Often when I say that I'm an interpreter, I usually get the question, what languages do you speak? And that's definitely a valid question. I always say that I speak a little bit of fish, mostly some invertebrata. But what I do, rather than interpreting language, is interpret the exhibits that we have here at the aquarium. I talk about what is going on back behind the scenes, behind the glass. And I also work with our volunteer guides. I help to teach them what they need to know to be out there talking with all of our guests.
Yeah, so if you've ever stopped by the aquarium and seen one of our amazing volunteers in their bright red jackets or bright blue vests, there's a very good chance that they know Erin here very well. Erin is definitely a fish whisperer and fellow bird nerd. We were talking a little bit earlier on our first live stream about that, how I am very excited because they gave me permission to talk about birds on the live stream today. And it was mostly thanks to you, Erin. So thank you for being our guest this afternoon.
I am so excited to talk about birds.
Well, we've got lots of action happening out on the bay all the time. I was actually going to take a minute to zoom in on some sea otters that we actually have just out off of the back deck right now. So, Patrick, do you see any questions coming in from chat right now that you want to talk to Erin about?
Well, I had to turn off my microphone because it was echoing through the room there, Erin. So my apologies to everybody that's tuning in, but there was a question on Periscope, Erin. Is there any preparation the aquarium itself does when a storm comes? Do we have to do anything here? Batten down the hatches? What do we do?
Oh, that is a good question. As far as I'm aware, I haven't heard of anything that we really need to do. But when we see those big waves starting to come in, when we see that forecast, we will make sure that anyone coming to the aquarium is aware, if they're going to be out on the back decks, that there are some big waves coming in. We want to make sure that nobody gets splashed while they're out on the deck.
Definitely. That's definitely been an instance where it's happened to staff more than once. That's how we know to put the signs out that there are waves splashing up on the back deck there. Now, if you are...
I'll zoom in on those otters there.
Do you want me to move the camera a little? You got it a little bit?
Yep.
All right. So what you are seeing right now on screen is going to be just a couple of wild California sea otters off the back deck now, which is a pretty amazing sight. And it's actually, thankfully, a pretty common sight that we see here in California. You'll often hear us talking about sea otters because they're cute, charismatic, and fuzzy and adorable, and everybody loves them. But with these sea otters, if you were here 100 years ago on the site where the Monterey Bay Aquarium is now, it wasn't a very good chance that you would have seen sea otters. So they're slowly starting to bounce back. So it's always an exciting day when we do get to see them.
It certainly is. And even going back to when we first opened 35 years ago, it was still pretty rare to see a sea otter out from the back deck. So things have changed a lot just over the last 35 years. And that is thanks to a lot of the protections that are in place here in Monterey Bay on the habitats themselves, as well as with the sea otters too.
We're very fortunate to be right on a national marine sanctuary where we get to enjoy all of the awesome wildlife every day off of our back decks. We were looking at Risso's dolphins earlier. We've got the sea otters that we're hanging out with right now. But I do see a couple of birds out there currently, Erin. I know I promised our audience bird talk, and we are going to get to bird talk this afternoon. This is one of my favorite places to go birding. We're so fortunate to live here because we're right on this Pacific Flyway that it's called. Can you tell us a little bit about what a Pacific Flyway is, what that term means?
Yeah, definitely. So the Pacific Flyway is a place where migrating birds are coming through. They might be stopping over just for a little bit of a snack, a bit of a rest stop, which is a great place here in Monterey. We've got this amazing rest stop, essentially. If anybody's ever been on a long road trip, you know you need to take a break every once in a while. You have to get out of the car, get some food, and this is a great place to do it. So we see a lot of those migrating birds that are coming through down that Pacific Flyway, big migratory route, and we might see them stop off here just for a little while, especially with these big storms coming in, since they're trying to get out of some of those big waves, the big winds that are coming through.
Exactly. So we talked a little bit about how the aquarium prepares for a big storm. Wildlife, they're also preparing for when these storms are coming through, whether it's the sea otters moving to areas that are a little bit more sheltered along the coast, to birds kind of stopping off in these pit stops, these kind of rest stops along the Pacific Flyway, where they can kind of rest and shelter and kind of hunker down during these big storms. Because we had the window open earlier and it was like a gale force wind kind of tearing through our tower room up here. It sounded haunted a little bit.
It did. I felt like we were back in October rather than...
So this was our spooky live stream that it's just about a month late here.
Yeah.
What bird would you like me to put up on?
Yeah, we've got some bird photos. Any bird requests that you want to talk about right now?
Oh, sure. Yeah, let's put up a cormorant.
Okay, not one of those migratory birds.
Not one of the migratory birds. Yeah.
True.
They are permanent residents here in Monterey, although we do see many different species of cormorant. Do you know what kind of cormorant you're putting up on the screen right now, Patrick? I can see if I can
I do believe I have
switch
a pelagic
over.
cormorant up on.
All right, we'll double check that. We'll be the ones to tell you if that's a pelagic cormorant
Yes,
right
you
there.
got it.
So just in case people want to know how we can tell that this is a pelagic cormorant, Erin, do you want to take that?
Sure. With that photo there, you can see kind of towards those back legs there on the back, there are a couple of white patches, and that is very typical of those pelagic cormorants during their breeding season,
Which they are not in right now.
Correct. So if you were to see some pelagic cormorants out there, it would be your best guess as well as mine which kind we might be looking at.
Yeah, it's pretty tough to tell this time of year unless you have a good view of them. And if they're sitting right next to each other, all the better, because the Brandt's cormorants, which is another cormorant species that we see here along the California coastline, they're going to be a little bit larger, and they're going to have this kind of pale patch right where their throat is at, versus the pelagic cormorants, which are much more kind of svelte and smaller. We also sometimes see double-crested cormorants. And Patrick, I think that we have a picture of a double-crested in there, although I don't think it's labeled as such. So we'll see. It's going to be a challenge to Patrick to figure out if he can spot the one photo that's mislabeled as a...
Okay, I'll transition us back to the bay. I'll look for that.
All right. One more thing to point out, though, in that photo as you're transitioning back to the bay is that big clump of algae that it has in its beak, that's how they're making their nests, right, Erin?
It is. Yeah, they're carrying those big clumps of algae. They're actually diving down to the bottoms of the kelp forest, sometimes maybe 30, 40, 50 feet down to get those big clumps of algae. And they do nest here right underneath of the decks of our aquarium. From certain places on the decks, you can actually see the nest. We get to watch the little chicks grow up.
Okay, if you can't find the double-crested cormorant, Patrick. Oh wait,
Erin,
we'll
you
pause.
can look over here.
Oh yes.
We're producing this live. Thanks, everyone.
If not, I also have a photo of those chicks that are underneath the deck. Well, not currently, but during the summertime, during their breeding season, what it looks like there.
Yeah.
There's a debate going on in the corner currently to see if we have found the double-crested.
That's why we have the bird nerds. Okay, that's fine. I'll put up a surf scoter. Does that sound good?
Either surf scoter, or if you can first put up the picture that I have of the chicks under the deck.
Yes.
Yeah, just because they're cute and fuzzy.
Right away.
They're so fuzzy.
They're so fuzzy.
So back to building those nests.
Yes.
These cormorants are bringing back big clumps of algae to their
I'll
nest.
cormorant talk all the time, Patrick.
Yes.
Don't try and distract us with a surf scoter.
Right. Yeah, we'll get to that one. We'll get to it.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, and there's the little baby.
All right. We'll see them on our screen here in a second, but I'm going to trust that he has the
They're up.
babies up there.
Perfect.
All
Okay.
right.
So if you've ever been to the beach when there's a lot of algae on the beach and you've seen it kind of dried up, it's really not a great nesting material, right? You can just crumble it in your fingers. So as the birds are moving around, the parents, whether they're warming their eggs or feeding their chicks, this algae is drying up and falling apart. So they are constantly bringing back fresh algae to their nest the entire nesting season. Not only are they bringing back food for their mate or for their chicks, but they're also working really hard to bring back that algae to replenish their nest.
Exactly. And something to kind of keep that nest in shape is actually something that just happens naturally. Their guano kind of acts as cement to kind of hold everything together. So even in that photo down there, you can see it looks a little white and crusty. And that is both from the algae that is drying out, but also from the leftovers from its hard work there, I like to say.
Yes, that's a good way of putting it. I like that.
All right. Patrick, you mentioned surf scoter, though.
Yes, we're good.
You can distract us with surf scoters
I'm
now.
loading up a surf scoter. I just wanted to point out because there have been lots of surf scoters that I've seen.
All right. Well, yeah, and it is that time of year where we do see a lot of surf scoters off of our back decks. So surf scoters, for those of you kind of wondering what this awesomely named bird is a duck that's trying to do its best impression of a puffin. I always like to say, yeah. It has like a puffin's coloration, but it is in fact a duck, right?
It certainly is, and it's one of the diving ducks, if I am not mistaken. And they make some pretty amazing migrations.
They really do. In fact, I was just up in Alaska a few months ago, and we saw a whole bunch of surf scoters up there, and they were getting ready to make the migration down here. So these are birds that will fly for thousands and thousands of miles from areas up towards Alaska and northern Canada, and then come down here during the wintertime where the weather is much more mild. Even as this big storm is coming into the bay, it's nothing compared to those harsh winters up towards both of the poles, both the North Pole and the South Pole here. So we see birds coming from all over the place here in Monterey, including those surf scoters and including some really amazing other birds. Oh, I see a surf scoter up there on the screen right now. Awesome. Patrick's doing a great job. Thank you, Patrick. Everybody's, yay, Patrick.
Oh, put myself back on screen.
Yeah. He's our bird support system right now. But yeah, you can see that awesome coloration that they have, and kind of why I like to say that they do look a little bit, I don't know, maybe it's just me. I think that they look a little bit like a puffin, you know?
They definitely do. Yeah, they really have that puffin coloration. But if you look real closely at the bill, you can see it's that flat bill that looks very much like a duck. And I have heard rumors that there are certain duck characters, very famous duck characters that are based on this surf scoter.
Can anyone do an impression?
I don't think I can.
You don't
I
want
can
me to
do
that.
actual bird noises. I don't know if I can do it. Oh no, I heard my camera just go off there. There we go.
I'll transition over to a
We're back there.
grebe, a western grebe, I believe, or a Clark's grebe.
Oh, let's see if we can tell.
Let's see if we can tell which one. It's going to take a couple of seconds for it to show up for us.
This is a good test for the bird nerds. It should be up there momentarily.
Okay.
There's a bit of a delay between what the bird nerds are seeing. Almost there. Should we say it like on the count of 3? Which one we think it is?
Yeah,
I don't know.
let's do it.
Oh
Let's do it.
no.
Oh man.
Oh no.
Okay.
I'm afraid that I'm gonna get this wrong. I'm gonna have my bird nerd cred taken away from me.
Uh-oh.
It's up on
Okay.
screen this whole time.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, it's
Should we-
gonna be
let's
very
do this.
awkward. All right.
Let's do this.
All right. 1, 2, 3.
Clark.
Western. Oh no! All right, Erin, tell us how we can tell that this is a Clark's and not a Western.
So I am thinking that it is a Clark's because of that beautiful school bus yellow bill. The Westerns
good thing
do
to
also
look
have
for.
that yellow bill, but it's just a little bit duller. It's not quite as bright.
Very nice. All right. Well, I'm gonna defer to your expertise here. Definitely. But these are another wintertime bird that we have here. What were you gonna say there, Erin?
I mean, somebody else might, correct me.
I know. Who
That
knows?
was right.
Maybe
So-
it's not a Western or a Clark's grebe, and we're both wrong.
What they might say is they'd like to file a grievance.
A grievance.
Oh.
All right. Let's get that off the shelf.
All right. We'll let that one slide there. We'll let it fly.
Next bird I'm going to load up is a loon.
Okay.
Ooh, I do like the loons.
They are pretty awesome. And for those of you who might be tuning in from the Midwest right now, I saw quite a few people tuning in from Illinois and Michigan. Loons are probably a pretty familiar bird to you. And if you're up there in Canada, probably know what we're talking about as well. We've got these all different kinds of loons that actually come here to the Monterey area. Do you want to talk about our loony friends?
Absolutely. I don't know about that one. We do see a couple of
Approved. All right.
Okay. We see at least 3 different kinds of loons here. We've got the Pacific loon. We've got common loons, and my personal favorite are the red-throated loons.
They're so beautiful.
They really are.
And those are kind of I wouldn't say a rare sight, but it's always pretty exciting when we do get to see the red-throated loons off of the deck.
Yeah, they're definitely a little more rare than the common loons. Not all that common really either. So one of those weird names. But those red-throated loons are definitely some of the least sighted of the loons that we see here. And I actually just saw the first one of the season yesterday. So we've got it on our list.
Keep an eye out here outside.
We have a question from Twitch. Can
Okay.
either of you do a loon call?
Oh, I wish that I could because they are absolutely beautiful.
They're beautiful.
That's an interesting thing, though, because we don't hear them calling when they're here. They're migrating, and those calls are something that they do when they're on the nesting grounds. So we don't actually get to hear them except rarely around here.
Yeah. I wish they would call more often here.
Me too.
That would be pretty fun.
Now we have another question.
Yes.
What do you guys love about working at the aquarium the most? I imagine as bird nerds is the ability to bird for work.
Yeah, I get paid to bird. I get paid to look at birds all day. It's great. I wouldn't say all day. I get paid to look at birds when they let me look at birds.
Yeah. And I mean, how can you beat this lovely view? I mean, it's absolutely amazing.
It's definitely
couldn't ask
hard
for
to
a
beat.
better
In
view.
fact, I can zoom out the camera once more if you want to keep on talking about your favorite things.
Sure. Yeah. And I mean, it's hard to beat the view from outside as well as inside the exhibits. But I mean, I think my favorite part has to be working with the volunteers. We've got about 750 volunteers that you might encounter on any given day out on the floor of the aquarium. Working with people telling you all of their favorite things about the aquarium and just getting to learn from them and hearing all of their stories. We've got right around, I think, 17 volunteers that have been here since we opened. So they've been around for a long time, and they just have this amazing catalog of stories of things that they've experienced and that they've learned over the years.
Yeah, and if you ever get a chance to stop by the aquarium, if you have stopped by in the past and have interacted with our guides, you know just how much knowledge they have, how much passion they have for sharing those amazing stories with everyone and sharing those unique experiences.
Question from Facebook. What's the rarest bird you've seen off the deck?
Ooh,
Oh, wow.
that's a tough one.
Yeah.
From the deck specifically, though.
At the aquarium. Rarest bird.
Rarest bird.
Gosh.
Alexa Rogalski has stumped the bird nerds. They're going
Oh.
through
Well, I know. Yeah, I know birds that we get excited about,
Mhm.
but I don't know if they would necessarily be the rarest birds. Excited birds. I always get excited whenever we see the kingfisher from the back deck, even though it is not a rare bird here in Monterey by any means. It's just always so exciting because you see this little bullet just flying through the air, and it just looks so top heavy with its little feather mohawk and everything. It's just such a delight to see the belted kingfisher from the back deck.
It is. Those are always so much fun. And these, since their name is a kingfisher, they are fishing out there at the very top of the kelp forest. Sometimes you can even see them doing an activity called kiting, which is where they flutter their wings in such a way that they are literally hovering over the kelp forest, waiting to spot a fish so they can dive down and catch it. And when they do dive down into the water, they hardly make a splash. I mean, it's a good thing that we don't allow these birds into the Olympics.
Yeah, they would get 10s across the board every time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Question from Malcolm Tunnel. What's more exciting to see, birds or whales or dolphins?
My personal opinion, I think, would have to be birds, just because I love birds so much. I mean, it always is exciting to see whales and dolphins off of the back deck. But I have to admit, I really do get a little more excited about the birds.
I think on a day-to-day basis, birds. But seasonally, it's the whales, because when you see the first orca of the season in the spring or the first gray whale of the season as they're making their migrations, those are always big days. And any day that we get to see a blue whale from the back deck is just 10 out of 10 the best days ever. But the birds change every single day. You never know what you're going to see. Even right now, we're looking outside. Right before we went live, we saw a glaucous-winged gull fly by, and Erin expertly ID'd before it even came into view for me here. Is that one? No. I know. I'm just paying attention to all the gulls now as they're flying by. I'm like, hello, sir. And so it's just those little moments like that from a day-to-day basis. I think the birds are the most exciting.
Yeah.
I'm going to put a Risso's dolphin up on screen.
Okay. Yeah, so
Good.
those are what
Yeah.
we saw.
Let's talk about
Let's
those.
talk about the Rissos that we saw earlier. Do you want to introduce us to Risso's dolphins there, Erin?
Yeah, I do. I think out of all of the marine mammals that we see off of the back deck, I think the Risso's dolphins have to be my favorite. Their scientific name is Grampus griseus, which is just so cool. It's so cute. But it reminds me of something that is very grizzled, something that looks just very scarred. And that's exactly what they are. They have these scars all over their bodies that come from not just the kind of interactions between the dolphins themselves, but also from the food that they're eating. They are squid eaters.
Yeah, and you can see on the photo that we have up on screen right now, those white scars on its gray body, and that's exactly what Erin's talking about there. So many squid have almost these like tooth-like structures on their suction cups, and they have these big, powerful beaks, almost like a parrot. And so the food's going to fight back when these dolphins are trying to catch it. The food is absolutely trying to fight back. And so these dolphins get scratched up and scarred. And so just like you said, Erin, just makes them look so grizzled and tough. And yeah, they are definitely one of the coolest marine mammals out there. They're also one of the largest dolphins out there too.
They are. They're the second largest dolphin, second only to the orca or killer whale. These can be up to, I think, right around 12 feet long. So they are quite large, and they need to be. I mean, they're out there eating Humboldt squid, which are also a very large squid. So smaller dolphin wouldn't necessarily get away with eating something that is as big as a Humboldt squid.
Dolphinately, yes. But you can also see in that photo too how it has that kind of rounded head instead of kind of that classic dolphin shaped face that we think of, like when we think of bottlenose dolphins. So that's one of the ways that you can tell that those are Risso's dolphins. Whenever we spot them out there in the bays, they're just big.
Got the scars.
Ooh, got the scars. Excellent.
And they also have a huge dorsal fin too. It's absolutely enormous in comparison to the rest of the body of the dolphin.
We've definitely had people tricked and fooled by them, thinking that there were either sharks out there or orcas out there because they see these huge dorsal fins coming up and breaching out of the water, and it's just the Risso's dolphins. They're here all year round. You can really get a great view of what those scars look like on their backs there and just how white they can become. So you can see kind of at the tail edge of its dorsal fin just how dark gray it is, and that's how the entire dolphin starts out when it's first born. But as they get older and as those scars start to build up, they become more and more white.
More and more grizzled.
More and more grizzled. Yes.
So the Risso's dolphins that we were seeing out here in the bay earlier today, I think they were sleeping while we were seeing them, because we saw them just going back and forth, not really doing anything active. They were moving pretty slowly. And as squid eaters, those squid are mostly active at night. So they're going to want to be hunting those squid during the daytime, at night when they are closer to the surface, which means that they have to be sleeping during the day. And I absolutely love talking about the way that dolphins and other marine mammals, the whales, sleep.
Then talk about it.
All
Erin.
right.
Yeah.
So we humans, when we go to sleep, we continue to breathe. It's automatic. For dolphins and whales, they have to be consciously breathing all the time, even when they're sleeping, because they need to come up to the surface to get a breath. They can't just fall asleep and let their kind of normal rhythms take over. That doesn't happen for them. So instead, what they do is they shut down one half of their brain at a time, and one eye stays open to keep an eye out for anything going on, to keep them coming up to the surface to breathe. So one half of the brain is active, one half is asleep. And let me tell you, I would get so much more done during the day if that were possible for us humans.
That would be a great adaptation to have.
I agree.
We need to start working towards that technology there.
Yeah.
All right. See if we've got any questions coming in online right now.
There was one. What is the most challenging animal to keep alive at the aquarium? We can maybe talk about that.
Oh, that's another great question.
Oh, sorry. Actually, maybe a better follow-up right now on Twitch, and then we'll go to that one after. How did we find out that dolphins sleep that way?
It's a good question. So there's definitely been studies done on dolphins, and just being able to observe them up close like that, where we can watch, and you can put like electrodes on dolphin heads, just like you put electrodes on human heads to do sleep studies, to do those studies with the dolphins themselves to see what's going on in their brains.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, great question.
Some of that was at UCSD.
Yeah.
Oh. Cool. So what's a challenging animal to keep here at the aquarium?
I think there's quite a few.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So first of all, shout out to our amazing aquarists who work very, very hard every single day, keeping everything just well taken care of. And for them, a lot of the challenge goes into potentially raising animals here at the aquarium from the time that they're eggs to the time that they go on exhibit, in particular with different species of jellies, comb jellies, siphonophores, all different kinds of gelatinous animals that are, one, just very delicate, so you can't transport them in a way that you might be able to transport a fish. But two, not a lot of information is known about these animals, where you can't put a tag on a jelly in the wild and figure out where it's going, what it's doing. A tag is going to go straight through a jelly. So here at the aquarium, they have to learn everything from the ground up about these animals as they're raising them, right, Erin?
Yeah.
I'm going to put one up on screen, and you can tell me which. This is a difficult one to take care of. Ready? So
It's going to take like an extra 20 seconds to get to us on this end. Okay.
Look at Thea.
Yeah.
Yes.
The beautiful sea goddess.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Barely organized water is what they called it. Yeah.
Yeah. So delicate that even a movement that's too fast when someone is cleaning the exhibit can cause them to just disintegrate.
Yeah. So these are animals that are, like 98% water, basically, and just held together by a wish and a dream and some proteins. So these are very, very delicate animals. So cleaning their exhibits, making sure that we have a healthy habitat for them, is just a danger, trying to go in there and making sure that we don't harm the animal in any way, too. So Leucothea, definitely a challenging animal. You were going to say something there, Erin.
Oh, just another shout out to those aquarists that are working with them, learning so much about them and how to take care of them in such a way that we can have not only these animals on exhibit, but also to have generations of these animals raised here at the aquarium that are on exhibit.
Exactly. They're on exhibit here. You might hear the phrase aquarium trade every now and then, and that's definitely very true, because we'll be able to raise jellies here at our aquarium that we can hatch from eggs to adults, and we send them to other aquariums. So if you've been to another aquarium before, there is a very good chance that some of them might have come from right here in Monterey. So you can say hello to our Monterey locals in your local aquarium.
That's right.
I'm going to put up a pyrosome on screen, because I think that transitions beautifully from the comb jelly to pyrosomes. Can you tell us, we've been seeing the sea pickles?
The sea pickles. Yeah, Patrick, you've been seeing a lot of the sea pickles on your dives lately out in the bay. And if you've been walking along the beaches, you might have seen some of them washing up on the beach too, right, Erin?
Absolutely. And I actually just saw my very first pyrosome right out here in the Great Tide Pool. I was so excited to see one, and I didn't even realize what I was looking at first, because they just look so very strange. But it does kind of beg the question, are these related to jellies? So we think of these stinging jellies, and they actually are not. They're more closely related to us humans than they are to jellies, which is really cool.
All right, so let's unpack that one a little bit, because that's a pretty foreign concept for most people to grasp. When you look at this thing, it looks like a jellyfish. It's clear and gelatinous, and it lives out there in the ocean, but you're saying that it is very closely related to us. How, why, what's going on here, Erin?
Yeah, it's very
We're not
strange.
trying to trick people at all, I promise.
No, not a trick, not a joke. So if you go back very early on in our development, when we are teeny tiny little embryos, we have certain things, certain characteristics that we share with animals like these pyrosomes, like tunicates and salps and all kinds of other gelatinous creatures that are not related to jellies. So it definitely, you have to go back a long ways, but we definitely have that relation.
That common thing with these pyrosomes there.
Yeah.
All right.
Very cool. Pyrosome is off screen.
All right.
What I am going to bring up here is a sea butterfly pseudoconch, if you want to tell about maybe that washing up on the beach.
Ooh. I would like to see the picture here just a second.
All right.
It'll take a minute. I know. I just want to make sure that I am.
It's the gelatinous thimble that washes up on the beach.
Oh, the little thimble. Yes. So that one, I'm actually not terribly familiar with that one, but that one in particular, but it is another one of those gelatinous creatures, more closely related to us than a lot of the other gelatinous animals, the jellies in the ocean, similar to those pyrosomes. And these are colonial animals. Oh, no, I'm sorry.
You might be thinking of another pyrosome or cephalophore. These ones are the sea butterflies, the mollusks.
I wish you could see what Patrick is doing right
yeah.
now. Patrick was like, he's the...
Okay, we're transitioning.
All right.
Okay, so that's the shell of a gelatinous snail.
Okay, got it. All right, Emily, why don't you take it?
So yes, snails, they live in the ocean too. No. This has been your PSA for the afternoon. There we go. There it is. That little nugget up there on the screen right now. So that, oh my gosh, you just said the name of it, Patrick.
Corolla spectabilis
Pteropod. I'm not going to even remotely try and pronounce its scientific name on a Friday afternoon. So, but those pteropods, they're, again, a gelatinous animal, but they're these little snails that live out there in the ocean. Their foot is what creates those wings on either side, and they kind of flap their way through the water like a little butterfly, hence the name, the sea butterfly.
Yeah, I'll get those out. Anyway, those might be washing up on the beach.
Yes. So it's that time of year when you might see a lot of gelatinous things washing up on beaches around Monterey, around California. And if you do spot any of those, we'll do a quick just shout out to our friends over there at Jelly Watch. You can always log those on Jelly Watch and see what it is and see what is washing up on the beaches around in your area. You can also log on to iNaturalist and log those sightings as well, and that'll help you get some IDs on what you might be finding on beaches. So 2 good resources if you're out there beachcombing and you see a little gelatinous lump and you want to know if it's pyrosome or if it's a beautiful pteropod out there.
Awesome. We have a question. I want to post a picture of a marine animal photographed by a friend in the hopes of identifying. How can I do this? If they send us a DM, maybe we can identify it live.
Yeah.
Or give it a shot.
Okay, yeah. If you send it to us, we can give it a go. Very cool.
So send us a DM on Facebook, and we'll see. Here, do you want to say that into the microphone?
Yeah. Yes. So I thought you had your microphone. Oh, that's right. You don't have your microphone up right now. So if you send us a DM with that photo on Facebook, we can see if we can try and identify that animal live here on our stream right now. So go ahead and send it to us, and if we can get it soon, then we'll do our best to pull it up here. So it'll be a live ID session with Emily, Erin, and Patrick. All right. I was just looking outside to see if there was anything else happening out there. I'm also always just keeping an eye out for the dolphins to see if they'll come back.
Some harbor seals going by.
There are some harbor seals going by. All right, I'm going to try and move the camera over here for just a second. Patrick, any other questions that we have online right now?
We don't have any at the moment, but here what I'll do is I'll just only transition to Erin. How about now? Do we have the sound again?
Are we back?
We back?
Can you hear us? There'll be like a Verizon commercial. We're not sponsored, but can you hear us now?
Okay. Sorry, my bad.
Hi.
Okay, yay.
Erin, say what you just said again because it was lovely and we did not hear it.
Oh, shoot. Okay, so I went back to the pyrosomes, the salps, those colonial gelatinous animals that catch their food with a mucus net. So they live much farther away from shore, very far out to sea. And they don't really like to be closer to shore because there's more food in the water closer to shore. And those mucus nets get clogged up really easily. So, they much prefer some of the water where there is actually less stuff in the water.
Very cool. All right.
We've got a mom and pup.
We got a mom and pup on the screen. Okay. That was the hard work that I was doing over here in the corner. Oh, a little bit far away. Let's see if I can move it.
Oh, don't worry. I moved it.
Okay. I was just going to move it to the... Well, that might have been too much there.
I got it.
All right. There we go.
Oh, absolutely adorable.
I know.
Tell us a little bit about that.
It's just going to be us staring at the screen, being distracted for the rest of the afternoon, looking at that little mom and pup sleeping.
Yep.
All right, excellent. So we can all sit there and be distracted together as we look at this mom and pup just off of our deck. So if you see that extra little fuzz ball that's right there on her tummy, that is going to be our pup that is resting. I just saw you go like this, though, Erin.
So we were talking about the double-crested cormorants earlier, and I just saw about 3 of them go by. So that's what happens with the birds out here. So we get that.
Now we really do have to find that picture, Patrick. It's in there. I can tell you which file it is, too. Hold on. Erin, keep on talking about cute sea otters.
Yes, cute sea otters.
You can see its nose kind of opening and closing.
Oh my gosh. Too cute. Too cute. So this little mom and pup, we can see sea otter pups out here year round. They don't necessarily have a particular season when they have pups, which is good if you want to see sea otter cuteness. It doesn't really matter what time of year you come. You might have a chance to see a little sea otter pup. And I think probably the most adorable thing about the pups when they're teeny tiny is that their fur is so thick and...
Emily, they're on the move.
They're on the move.
They're on the move.
Oh, we lost them.
No, mom boat.
Mom has left.
So anyway, their fur is so puffy that it acts just like a life vest. They literally cannot dive down to the bottom to find their own food, even if they knew what they were doing. They just pop right back up to the surface like a cork. So that mom is working really, really hard out in that cold water, not just to feed herself, but to feed her pup as well. And taking care of her own fur, making sure that's staying clean to keep her warm, and spending just as much time cleaning the fur of her little one to keep it warm too. Did you find it again?
I am using all of my willpower to ask this sea otter to wrap up in the kelp where they have paused right now.
Paused.
Yes, paused.
Yeah, another otter came and spooked them, and so she decided to leave. So otters can scare other otters, hence why it's so important as kayakers to stay away, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, we want to make sure that we're staying at least 100 feet away. But basically, if a sea otter looks up and notices you there, it is a little bit too close. And these sea otters have they really live life on the edge out there in the ocean. The water is cold. They've got to dive down deep to find their food. So they need to rest as much as they possibly can. In fact, the life of a sea otter is eating, sleeping, and grooming their fur. And that is just about it. So, any little extra expenditure of energy that they have to take can really take quite a toll.
Good stuff.
Oh, lovely.
Oh, we can watch an otter wrap itself up in kelp live right now. That's very exciting.
Oh, perfect.
Look at you go.
Oh, that's so cool.
Oh, that was so awesome.
Nice.
Oh, I love it.
Oh.
That's perfect.
Did a little loop, went right back to where it was. Thank you, sea otter. All right, I'm back on the search for our double-crested cormorant photo here.
Oh, we've got some grooming going on. Absolutely adorable. So they're wrapping themselves up in kelp to make sure that they don't drift away while they fall asleep. And mom will even leave the pup wrapped up in kelp while she dives down to find food, kind of like a built-in babysitter.
Yeah. It's also great because when they go to sleep, they're wrapped up in this kelp. Kelp is anchored down to the sea floor. And so it's like having an anchor themselves. So when they wake up, they don't wake up, a mile away from where they fell asleep. It's kind of like us. We like to wake up in our own bedrooms and not, down the street in the Target. Instead, it might happen. You never know. Yeah. From personal experience. No. All right. Patrick, the photo is 0744.
0744 coming right up.
Oh, yep. So Emily, tell us what makes that one a double-crested cormorant?
So when that photo comes up, what you want to look for is going to be that bright yellow beak and throat on it. So that's one of the ways that you're able to tell this is a double-crested cormorant instead of a pelagic cormorant or one of our Brandt's cormorants. So the Brandt's cormorant just has this kind of like peachy pale throat, but the double-crested one, they're a lot larger than both the Brandt's and the pelagic cormorants. But they have that bright yellow throat, beak, and these bright blue eyes, too.
So we're leaving a baby otter being groomed for a cormorant. So I'm going to give a 10 seconds. Ready?
This is very important information, Patrick.
Yep. But
that's a double-crested cormorant.
All right. That is a double-crested cormorant. We'll leave it up there for a couple of seconds, but then we'll go back to a baby sea otter being groomed. I'll move that camera over just a little bit, too, so that we can keep it in frame.
Yeah, I'll have to move it.
Oh, well. It's too late. I already did. There we go. Look at that bright yellow. Oof. All right. But back to the sea otter. Back to sea otters being sea otters and being cute.
But folks, if you live away from the coast, the double-crested cormorant is the one that you are most likely to see. So if you're familiar with, these big dark birds that might be sitting out on the rocks or in trees around water, then the double-crested cormorant is probably what you're seeing.
If you're over there on the Gulf Coast as well, most likely seeing the double-crested cormorant. Very, very true. Now, when they're in their breeding plumage, that's where the double-crested comes in because they have these beautiful feathers that kind of go up on either side. They have like a double mohawk going on their head. And with the Brandt's cormorants in their breeding plumage, they get these like delightful like reverse mutton chops on their face, these little white feathers that kind of stick out on both sides there.
And a little bit of blue on their throat too, bright blue. It's lovely.
It is lovely. They're beautiful birds. I know that we have photos of that, but we also have a mom and pup in screen right now. So
yeah, let's watch that.
Yeah, I guess we can leave that up for a little bit.
Questions about sea otters is, do we know how old the pups are? Is it common for there to be pups off of Cannery Row? How many pups does a sea otter mom have? Classic pup questions.
Classic pup questions, and we'll have some classic pup answers for all of you right now. A little pup date. So for sea otters, they usually only give birth to one sea otter pup at a time. I say usually because there are very rare instances where females will have twins. If that is the case, she will usually abandon one of those pups just because it is so labor intensive to take care of a single pup, that taking care of two pups is just not always feasible for them. If that happens, that's where us at the aquarium step in with our sea otter program, and our rescuers will go out, get that second pup, bring it back here to the aquarium, or one of our foster mothers, our surrogate mothers, will raise that pup so we can release it back out into the wild, helping to bolster their population. Since they are still on the endangered species list, we want to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to help these otters out in the wild, and that's one of the ways that we can help. But sea otters having one pup at a time, their gestation is actually really cool because it can vary, right, Erin?
It definitely can. They can do something called delayed implantation. So basically, as soon as a sea otter mom and a kind of juvenile, a young adult separate, then she's pretty much ready to mate again. But she's not ready yet to take care of another sea otter pup. That takes a lot of energy. So she will delay the implantation of that embryo internally for a little while until she can kind of regain some of that energy that she lost while she was taking care of the first pup.
Exactly. So while she might be able to get pregnant right away, that embryo won't actually attach internally until a little bit later. She can get pregnant right away, and so the shortest period of time from egg to adult is going to be about not an adult, but egg to outside into the world is going to be about 4 months. But it can be up to 10 months for the gestation of those sea otters.
Sorry to interrupt. Mom is licking pup feet right now in flippers and spreading them out, grooming between the toes there, making sure pup is thick and
So we're going to see that in about 20 seconds here on our screen, Erin, just so we know. So we're going to look at it on our screen while we talk about sea otters. Oh, that's very good. So for pup, once it is born, when it is with mom, it'll stay with mom for, it really depends, but almost a year. Anywhere between about 6 months and 10 months, it'll hang out with mom, learning how to be a sea otter. For the first 2 months or so of its life, it is completely dependent on mom for everything. And then from that point, it'll start learning how to dive and learning how to forage from mom for itself until it knows how to be an otter, and then it'll go back out into the wild.
Looks like pup is suckling as well.
Oh, this is multitasking mom right there.
Yeah, they really have to be out there in the ocean.
We have questions about how far away from the shore do otters tend to go? Do they stay near the coast?
They do stay near the coast. They will go out a little ways, a couple of miles at most, to kind of travel up and down the coastline here, especially if a big storm is rolling in. Believe it or not, those waves are much less intense further away from the coast as the water depth gets shallower. Those waves get more intense. It'll kind of head out to either areas that are more protected along the coastline, like up in Elkhorn Slough. That's a little bit more buffered from those waves during these big storms, or they'll head out to sea and just kind of ride those storms out.
They will. We actually had something very interesting happen on Thanksgiving, which I thought was very appropriate because we had some really big waves leading up to Thanksgiving Day. I mean, just absolutely huge waves. So we had a lot of sea otters from less protected areas of our coastline that were coming in to hang out with our more regular population right here. And you could tell which ones were the visitors and which ones were the kind of
the
residents. They were the out-of-towners. And,
yeah.
just like, family on Thanksgiving, there was a little bit of kind of
some sea otter tension.
Exactly. Yes, a little bit of tension there between the visitors and the ones that are here more regularly. So they were kind of hanging out in different areas, and you can tell the new ones were kind of watching, going, "Is this a place where I can hang out for a little while? Are you all cool with this?" And the ones that are here regularly were going, "I'm not sure about you. I don't know you. I'm not sure if I want to share my habitat, share my food resources just quite yet."
Yeah, that's very good.
But grooming is ongoing.
Yes, that is in high gear, that grooming right now. Let me know when you need me to move the camera, because I can see it slowly drifting out of frame, Patrick.
I've been using software solutions over here.
I know. Technology is helping us. But I can see it on my camera that they're slowly drifting out of frame. So
Oh, yeah. Feel free to move.
That technology you can't solve with your computer.
Nearly everything else.
Nearly everything else there.
Well, maybe do a little bumper, just letting folks know where we are, who we are, what we do.
Yeah, so for those of you who might just be tuning in with us right now, my name is Emily. I'm part of the social media team here at the Monterey Bay Aquarium. We've got Patrick, my counterpart over there behind the scenes, taking care of stuff on the computer and running things. But this afternoon, we are very lucky to be joined by one of our amazing interpreters from the aquarium. We have Erin with us this afternoon. We've just been talking birds, talking sea otters, talking wildlife, and just answering your questions this afternoon. So if you do have any questions, we're just chatting away. Feel free to throw those questions into wherever you're watching from right now. We are live all across our platforms on Facebook and Twitch, Periscope, and YouTube. So everywhere that you are, thank you so much for spending your Friday afternoon with us as we are getting that nice golden glow behind us there. We got the sunlight coming in. Yeah, this is not planned, but it's working out well to have golden hour here, making Erin and I look our best in the corner.
We have a question for the Thanksgiving visitors potentially from the raft in Elkhorn Slough is a follow-up question, but not the case. Elkhorn Slough pretty protected, right?
It is, yeah, definitely. Those sea otters that live up in Elkhorn Slough tend to not leave, as it is, like you said, Patrick, very well protected up there. These sea otters were from quite a bit closer, probably just around the corner, maybe someplace like Point Pinos. So they just had to come around to the very edge of the peninsula to get a little bit of protection from those waves.
Yeah, and I saw that question from Margaret over on Facebook, if we're able to tell if this sea otter is one that has been reintroduced to the wild through our rescue program. And we are able to tell that it isn't because it doesn't have any tags on that. Erin, do you want to take it away while I move the camera a little bit?
Absolutely. So as you're looking at those sea otters down there, you can see those back flippers sticking up out of the water, those nice back feet that propel them through the water so well. When we have a sea otter here that is either raised back behind the scenes with one of our surrogate moms or comes to stay with us for a little while for a bit of recovery, we will put some tags on those back flippers. And we usually put one tag on each back flipper. They'll be different colors. And so our researchers can tell just by looking at the colors, even if they can't see any numbers or identifying marks on the tags themselves, we can tell by that color combination and actually which of the toes they're between, what sea otter that is.
Yeah, so these sea otters have webbing in between their toes on their back feet, and so that's where we're putting those tags right there, and just depending on its placement, we can tell exactly where that's or which sea otter that is. So without any tags on it, we know that this is not a sea otter that has been through our program. I see Patrick fiddling with technology back there, so
Oh, good.
all right.
We lost your cam.
We lost us.
Uh-oh.
Oh no.
Oh,
That's okay. The sea otters are more important anyway, so they're on the screen. But
yeah, way cuter.
very, very cute right now. We see some more grooming going on, but you can see that Pup's head is down towards Mom's back flippers where those tags would be. So we don't see any of those tags. We know that this isn't a sea otter that's come through our program, but the reason why its head is down towards Mom's back feet there is because it is nursing right now. So Pup in reverse on Mom boat there, having a nice evening meal.
2 otters have just come in, and looks like we got some otter drama.
Otter drama.
Ooh.
Oh, I see the otters moving again. All right.
Rudely interrupting Mom and Pup time.
Oh, they were so snuggly too.
Oh, Pup is looking at Mom.
What's going on?
Oh.
Now you can tell that even though, I mean, all 3 of us combined have been here for many, many years, even we still get distracted by the cuteness of sea otters. It doesn't get old.
And looks like Pup has taken
Oh.
off.
Both of them have taken off, so I'm going to move the camera again.
They must have had a pretty good spot there for those other sea otters to come in and want to take over. You know, we just had some really interesting research come out, especially with those otters in Elkhorn Slough that we were talking about, that it turns out that pups raised here through our surrogacy program are just as successful as wild-born sea otters, which is really just kudos to the folks that work with the sea otters here at the aquarium that help to raise them and release them, but also kudos to our surrogate sea otter moms as well, which you would have seen if you've been here, if you watch the live cams with the sea otters or come to visit the aquarium and adored the sea otters on exhibit.
Oh, look at you. You got birds.
I got birds.
Ooh, what do we got? What do we have?
All right, Patrick, if you can zoom in a little bit for us.
Okay. 1 sec.
Because this could be pretty cool.
Sorry, everybody.
Ooh, I think I know what you're looking at.
Do you have any questions that you guys are looking to answer here real quick?
Ooh, I actually can't see the questions anymore, and I'm not sure how to
I
bring
can
them
get
back.
those questions back up. All right. Trying to multitask here in this 3-person television production that we're bringing to you right now. All right, let's see here. What's the temperature of the ocean right now in Monterey Bay?
Was it? Oh, sorry. I just am seeing finally what you're looking at. It's a rhinoceros auklet.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. These are some of my favorites.
So what's the temperature in the bay right
Temperature.
now?
That this auklet is swimming in. Well, Patrick, you were just diving today. What was the temperature out there?
55 degrees.
55 degrees. That is about average for the bay, but still very, very chilly. All right, let's see. I'll switch us back over there so you can see what we were very excited about. Our little rhinoceros auklet, which I know that we were really excited. We were spotting them off the deck the other day, and now we see them again. Erin, can you talk about why we're so excited that we're seeing them? As I stare at you've got this beautiful sunshine glow behind your head right there.
Yeah, these are really exciting birds. They're another one of those migratory birds that we don't see very often. And they are, again, coming through just on their migrations, but they're getting blown a little bit closer to shore because of the storms that we have coming in. And I think that I have seen more rhinoceros auklets over the last 2 days than I have seen as long as I've been watching birds.
I've really only seen them from boats before. I think I've only seen them off the deck a couple of times. So this year has already broken the record for how many rhinoceros auklets I've seen off the back deck.
Yeah, mine as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you might be wondering why they're called rhinoceros auklets. At the moment, they are not in that breeding plumage that we mentioned earlier, but when they are, during the springtime when they're trying to attract a mate, getting ready for nesting, they have a little growth on the very top of their bill that looks just like a rhinoceros horn. It's really adorable.
It's very good. It's a little flap right there. And they're actually pretty closely related to puffins, right, Erin?
They are. They're in that same family, the alcids.
Yes. The alcids are the diving seabird family. So when we talk about that, we're talking about puffins and auklets. Murres are another one of those common diving birds, and the pigeon guillemots that we have here in Monterey as well. Right now, if you were to hop on a boat and head out in the ocean, you would probably see some of those diving seabirds as well, since they tend to overwinter out there in the bay. In particular, those common murres, they like to hang out here during the winter time out there in the bay.
Call a punk rock auklet?
What do you call a punk rock auklet there, Patrick?
An alcid vicious. Say it in your microphone so they can hear it.
I refuse to. That has to be the. There you go.
Alcid vicious. Okay.
There we go. All right. Back to the camera. Continue, Erin.
All right. Oh, goodness. Let's see. So those alcid, especially the common murres. I absolutely love when we see the common murres, and we've been seeing more and more of them over the last few days, again, as they're getting blown in by these big storms. We do have some common murres on exhibit. In fact, we have a young one on exhibit right now, which is very, very exciting for those of us who love the birds. But they have a really cool story about getting here to the bay. They nest in places like the Farallon Islands. They nest out on the rocky cliffs, and the parents will push the chick out of the nest before they have learned to fly. So they have to flutter down to the water as best they can, and then they'll spend the next few months with their father, with the male parent, learning how to swim and dive as they're learning to fly. And they are coming down here once again to make use of all of the amazing food that is out there in the bay. And they are swimming a very, very long way to get here because those little ones don't know how to fly yet.
Exactly.
I'm putting up that.
The mer chick
yay.
photo. Yeah. She's very cute. So, and it is a she. We do know the gender of our newest mer that's on exhibit. So she joined us. She actually hatched back in August, I believe, and then joined our exhibit in October. Went behind the scenes to be raised by one of our males, and then came back out on exhibit and has met all of her new alcid mates hanging out there with her. Ugh, look at that cutie pie.
We have a gentleman on YouTube wanting proof of the stormy nature, and it was stormy.
It was a little stormy before, but I'll zoom out so that we can.
Clouds.
Yeah. right, goodbye, rhinoceros auklet.
Patrick, I think one of the photos that I dropped to you is a photo from earlier in the week that showed some of the storms. I'm not sure if you can get to it, but I did have a picture from earlier in the week that showed some rain out over the bay.
Oh, yeah. I'll look into it. Can we look at the dunes?
Dunes over there? All right.
Ooh, yeah.
I'm going to fix this just a little bit. Because I had to move to get to
No worries.
our sea otters before.
The folks want proof that it was stormy. It was extremely windy in the room earlier.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
If you want, I can open the window and we can hear the window. I can hear it behind us right now. So it's tapping at the window.
It is.
Letting us know that it's there when we open that door to be prepared.
Yeah. One thing that I have noticed over the last about 2 hours is if you look out at the ocean right now, we can see the currents moving through the water. And just about 2 hours ago, we could not see that at all. We couldn't see those currents moving.
Yeah.
And the wind is definitely picking up and pushing those currents.
Yes, absolutely. So it'll take a little while for that wind to really affect the waves here in the bay. But as we have things change in the weather, we will definitely see those waves start to pick up. It is so pretty outside right now with that kind of sunset glow on those dunes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very distracted by its splendor at the moment.
And of course, I'm still looking at all of the birds, and I'm seeing more and more birds coming in ahead of those winds. So we know that they're coming in. In fact, some of the birds, if they're flying with the wind, they're getting quite a bit of a push. And if they're trying to fly into the wind, they're having to work just a little bit harder.
Yeah, sometimes we see gulls that just looks like they're stationary as they're just trying to fly as hard as they can against the wind and not going anywhere with it. And so if you're a bird, it's tough. You got to go wherever nature is telling you to go sometimes. And sometimes for those birds who are making their migrations right now, they get blown into places like here in Monterey Bay. And that's when we see some of those rare birds. I know we were talking a little bit earlier about that, about how sometimes we see rare birds in the area. We've seen things like brown-footed boobies out here before. That was the very first bird outside of the normal ones that I saw on New Year's Day about 3 years ago was a brown-footed booby. So it set the year off right there. Was the brown-footed booby just down the coast here off of Lovers Point and Sillamar, where it was hanging out. So do sometimes get stranger birds blown in by those storms because of the winds.
Absolutely. Well, I'm hoping that we can get a few of them before the end of the year, maybe get them onto the list for this year.
All right, Patrick, I see you working hard over there.
Oh, just talk amongst yourselves.
All right, talking amongst ourselves. We'll go ahead and check the chat again over on our end to see if we've got any questions coming in here. Once again, for those of you who are just joining us, my name is Emily. I'm part of the social media team here at the aquarium, joined by Erin, the interpreter, and Patrick, my cohort, is behind the scenes doing some awesome work adjusting camera views and seeing what's happening there. Was my camera too crooked? It was pretty crooked. I apologize. All right, let's see here. Got another Patrick joining us online that loves auklets. You've got the right idea there, Patrick. Let's see here. Have we experienced any?
Oh, I actually really like that question.
You want to talk about that? Yeah, so over on YouTube, Julie is asking, have we experienced any impact from the warming of the seawaters? Erin, if you want to take it away.
Yeah, we certainly have. And we don't see it so much in the day-to-day temperature. We still see those seasonal fluctuations. But what we're seeing is in terms of the animals that we see here in the bay. So we have a really beautiful anemone here called the sunburst anemone. Sunburst green anemone, and they were pretty rare up until just recently this far north. They're a warmer water species, and we've been seeing more and more of them here in the bay. So we're experiencing that because of warming ocean temperatures.
Yeah, we definitely see lots of changes in the bay from animals that we haven't seen here in the past now appearing. It's starting to look more along the lines of what Southern California would look like versus what historic Monterey Bay looked like. Patrick, I see you pointing wildly at me again.
Our cam turned off.
Oh, no.
By the way, everyone, thank you so much for bearing with us as we want to bring you the wild Monterey Bay, but we're figuring it
Sometimes
out.
technology does not want us to bring the wild Monterey Bay to you. Yeah. Thank you again for bearing with us as we figure this production out. Oh, man. That sunset is pretty.
4 minutes left here, so if there's anything.
Definitely, yeah. So a couple of other animals that have kind of appeared that we haven't necessarily seen in the past are animals like our pelagic red crabs that would show up during El Nino years, but because of kind of the warm blob of seawater here in the Pacific that has shown up on and off for the last like 5 years or so, and because of the El Nino that we recently had, during that El Nino they reappeared, but because of the warm water they've kind of established themselves here in the Monterey Bay. So versus before where we would really only see them during those warm El Nino years, now we see them fairly often.
In fact, there are some species that we will go out and look for our exhibits that we used to have to go down to the Channel Islands to find them, and now we're able to see them right here off of the back deck.
All right, looking at some of those other questions coming in. Are whales still in the bay this time of year? Stephanie over there on Facebook. Absolutely. We actually are really fortunate. Whale watching capital of the world. We have whales all year around here, but the type of whale is going to change depending on the season that you are here. So during the summertime and during the fall, we have a lot of humpback whales. Humpback whales used to migrate back and forth between their feeding grounds here in Monterey down to Costa Rica and kind of Central America where they're giving birth. But we actually have a small pod of humpback whales that have just established Monterey Bay as their home. This is where they are. And if you tune into our sister institution, Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute, MBARI, you'll hear us call it, mbari.org, they have a live hydrophone that's in the deep sea, and you can listen to all the sounds of the ocean. And right now, if you tune in, you might actually hear some of those humpback whales singing, and it is my current obsession. Everybody's doing their Spotify playlist, like recaps of the year right now. My Spotify playlist is just our humpback whale hydrophone that's in the deep sea right now. Yeah.
I have that one on quite often as well. And even if you don't necessarily hear anything, the whales, you can even hear dolphins sometimes, like when it's stormy, you can even hear the rain on the surface of the ocean, which is cool. But even if you don't hear any of that, it does make for some pretty relaxing white noise.
It does.
What is a pod is a question here.
What is a pod? So a pod is the collective noun for a group of cetaceans. So those are going to be our dolphins and whales. So when we say a pod of humpback whales, that just means a group of them. So they are kind of our summertime and fall visitors, but during the winter and spring, we have different whales that come into the bay, right, Erin?
We do. We see those gray whales that are migrating by, coming all the way down from Alaska and heading to their birthing and breeding grounds down in the Gulf of California and along the coast down there. So we're seeing them just passing through. In fact, in their fall migration, they are getting down there as quickly as they can. Those moms want to get down there and give birth so that they can head back up to those feeding grounds. When we start to see them again in the spring on their way north, they will stick around for a little bit longer. They're taking their time when they move on their way back up with those calves.
Yeah, they're being more careful on their way back north because they are kind of hiding from the orcas. So orcas come into the bay during the springtime to hunt those gray whales, and it's much easier to catch a calf than it is an adult gray whale because these are large whales. These whales can be 30 to 40 feet long and weigh thousands and thousands of pounds. And so these huge whales are migrating with their calves, which are much smaller, which circle of life talk right now is a whole lot easier for a much smaller orca to catch. So the orca pods will come in and they will try and catch those gray whale calves. We've even been able to watch that circle of life right here from the back deck. And it's always tough to know who you're rooting for, whether it's the gray whales or whether it's the orcas, because both of them are amazing animals out there in the ocean. You want both to succeed. So yeah. It's tough to choose.
It really is. Yep.
All right. Well, we are just about out of time here on our stream this afternoon, saying goodnight with the ocean right now. We got the sunset happening over the bay. It's absolutely gorgeous outside. Erin, thank you so much for spending your afternoon with us today and for talking birds with me.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I really enjoyed it.
Well, we wouldn't have it any other way. Yay. And thank you to Patrick, who's behind the scenes right now, doing a great job keeping things running so that we could bird nerd out for the little while there, and even putting up pictures of birds while we had a mom and pup sea otter on screen. Thank all of you for putting up with that as well. And thanks to everyone who's tuning in across platforms. We had Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Periscope all tuning in this afternoon, which we are going to try and establish kind of Friday afternoons, just hanging out with the internet. So if you have questions, send those questions our way. We love to chat with you all and to see what you want to know about. But we are going to go ahead and tune out. We've got to close down the aquarium for the evening. But again, thank you all so much for spending your afternoon with us, and we will see you all again soon. Bye, everyone.